नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्णोन्मिलितं तस्मै श्रीगुरुदेव नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे।
So, Hare Krishna, everybody, and welcome back to our Srimad Bhagavatam reading. This is a book called Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. We will revise for those of you who have been reading after these chapters. You're in the 19th chapter, right? Ashka? You're in the 19th chapter?
Yes, Mataji. 5.19.9. 5. Chapter 19, slokas 19.
Okay, so we will kind of go
Okay.
back into 11th
Yes.
chapter,
Yes.
because
Yes.
we'll go over the story format of it.
Okay.
I can start reading. Bharata instructs Rahugana. Bharata looked at the pleading king. Did he have the humility for receiving transcendental knowledge? That should be easy to determine. Bharata said, we are speaking here about Jada Bharata. So this was the same person who was the great king Bharat Maharaj. And then later on he became a deer because of his attachment to this animal. And then now he is Jada Bharata. And we just saw how Jadabharata was pretending to be foolish and dumb. And then he meets Maharaj Rahugana, the king who was very proud of his kingship. And Bharat Maharaj now Bharat is deciding what to do. Bharata said, my dear king, although you have no realization of transcendence, you presume to speak as if you do. A wise man would never say such things. Rahugana said, can you disprove my points? Your examples apply only to a conditioned soul like you, not a liberated soul. They pertain to the material world. By such external illustrations, such as your argument about cooking milk and rice on fire, one cannot understand the absolute truth. I was trying to repeat the teachings of my court Brahmins. Bharat snorted. They must be followers of Jaimini Rishi's Karma Mimamsha philosophy, since they think attaining the heavenly planets is the highest goal of life. They understand nothing about transcendence. It is such a waste of time to speak to such people of the highest truth. They are only interested in those sections of the Vedas dealing with worldly happiness, not in genuine spiritual advancement. Bharata turned his face away, indicating he would say no more and waiting to see how the king would react. Rahugana tried to suppress his rising frustration, but despite himself, he exclaimed, does it make sense to say you know the truth and others do not, and then refuse to teach them? This is funny, right? Rahugana briefly paced back and forth, then taking a deep breath, he stopped before Bharata. Please excuse my outburst. Bharata looked into Rahugana's eyes. It was hard for the king to give up his pride, but he was doing his best. He said, material happiness, which is ephemeral like a dream, is the primary concern of the Vedas. They teach how to increase worldly comfort and decrease distress. Before someone is eligible to understand higher knowledge, he must first realize that the heavenly pleasures, liberation, and even mystic powers promised by the Vedas are insignificant. Rahugana sighed in relief. Despite his outburst, Bharata had not withdrawn into silence. He wrung his hands together. Although I wish I could experience spiritual happiness, I cannot help being attracted to worldly enjoyment. Why is that? Bharat smiled. It was an honest question. He said, as long as material nature influences the mind, it acts like a wild elephant, impelling the senses to engage in pious and impious acts, both of which simply keep one trapped in the cycle of repeated birth and death, enjoying and suffering. I'll pause here. Just today, I've been journaling, and this was the realization. Let me read it. I was writing this to myself. Dear Shri Radha Govinda, get through the short-term pain to avoid the long-term suffering. In other words, better to tolerate short-term pain than to suffer in the long term. And, this point is coming up here. Sometimes there is the tendency to want to avoid certain difficult situations, but then, I'm thinking especially if, say, relationships, sometimes we think that, oh, I want to feel loved, or I want friendship. And then I may rush into like what Rahugana is asking here. I cannot help being attracted to worldly enjoyment. So I'm remembering a couple of instances in my life where I really wanted to associate with somebody, and then different people told me, I don't think that Mataji is good association for you. Well, I don't think this person should be your, I shouldn't follow this person. But there is this worldly attraction, some enjoyment, right? And so instead of giving up on the temporary pain of, no, I'm going to tolerate this, and then sometime I may invite long-term suffering. And some other times I may tolerate the short-term pain, and then I may not realize, but I'm actually avoiding long-term suffering. So sometimes it's not easy to determine which is what. But here Rahugana is being very honest as a king, as a king, he has every facility to enjoy. And he has every facility to feel proud and treat people as he wants. But then he's facing Jadabharata, who's very wise, and he's attracted to higher knowledge. So Bharata is explaining about material nature, how it's like a wild elephant. It makes us, pushes us, go do this, go, come on, get this. We know it's temporary pleasure, but we still want it. And then we get trapped in the cycle of birth and death, which is a long-term suffering. It's so easy to say it, but when we have to go through it, it's so hard. So, any other points, comments, questions? Taruni Radha, nice to see you after a long time.
I just saw your message that you're going to be here. So
Yeah, I've been joining the last few days. So. So he continues. Okay, I'm going to read it. Anybody has any question, just unmute. Okay, and I would like to warmly welcome Mirabai. Mirabai is a very sweet devotee from New Vrindavan, from West Virginia. She lives there, and I met her in my trip to New Vrindavan, and I was very inspired by her creativity and her artistic mindset. Also, she's very organized, as I said in the group. It's like a combination of somebody who's very artistic but also very organized. And yeah, welcome to our Krishna Connection family, Mirabai.
Thank you.
And we had, when I was talking to Mirabai, also we brought up this point about what Bharat Maharaj is bringing up. When the mind is engrossed in material thoughts, we sometimes feel lusty, sometimes angry. We try to remember, Mirabai, we were discussing about what is love, what does it mean to want to wish well for another person. We were discussing this point exactly. So here Bharat Maharaj explains this. When the mind is engrossed in material thoughts, we sometimes feel lusty, sometimes angry. My dear king, try to understand. Our material persona comprises 5 elements: 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and the chief sense, the mind. The 3 modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, which vie for prominence, all affect the mind. Because of this, we get our next body. If goodness influences the mind, we get a higher birth. Who likes to read from here? Please take over from here. If goodness influence, somebody in the mode of goodness can read it. I'm joking. Please. Okay. From here.
Who, me?
Anybody. I mean, everybody can get a chance, so can read.
Okay. Where are we starting at 11.6? The material mind?
Yeah, I stopped here. If goodness influences the mind, we get a higher birth, and if passion or ignorance influences, we receive commensurately lower birth. Okay, you can start from here.
The material mind covers the soul and carries it to different species of life. The mind alone creates the conditioned living entity's present happiness and suffering, and it is the mind alone which keeps us bound in material existence. Rahugana's brow furrowed. Since the mind is material, how can it do this to the spirit soul? Bharat replied, the mind covers the soul and obscures his judgment. The soul, thus misguided, acts in ways which keep him in the cycle of repeated birth and death. The mind causes the soul to wander through the different species of life, enjoying and suffering as a human, a god, as a thin or fat person, and so on. The learned say that the mind causes our bodily appearance.
Very, very good points here. No, the mind alone, which keeps us bound in this material existence, the mind covers the soul and obscures his judgment. Thus, the soul misguided acts in ways which keep him in the cycle of repeated birth and death. Happens every day, right? Everyday life. Mind just covers us. Although we know better, it becomes hard. Yeah, please continue.
It also causes either our bondage or liberation. As they spoke, night fell. Rahugana ordered his guards to set up camp and to bring lamps and rugs. Rahugana respectfully invited Bharat to take a seat and sat before him. The guards then dispersed the crowds. When they were both seated, Rahugana said, "O Holy One, please explain how the mind can cause our bondage or liberation." Bharat said, when the mind is engrossed in material sense enjoyment, it causes continued birth and death in the material world. However, when the same mind becomes disinterested in worldly enjoyment, we attain liberation. Black smoke billowed out of some guttering lamps and wafted toward them. Rahugana turned irritably to his attendants. Those lamps need refilling. The guards, the guards hurriedly extinguished the offending lamps, leaving only those whose flames burned cleanly and brightly to illuminate the darkening night. Bharat said, the mind resembles these lamps. Absorbed in sense gratification, it is like the lamps whose wicks burn improperly, creating black smoke. When detached from sense gratification, it illuminates our consciousness, enabling us to experience the sweetness of devotional service to Krishna. Can you explain in more detail how the mind works? It interacts with the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses and the 5 working senses whose fields of action are respectively the tanmatras and organic activities. O hero, the mind also interacts with the false ego, which determines what we identify with, such as the body and its...
Okay, thank you, Mirabai. Anyone else likes to continue reading?
I can do it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay, Mataji, you go ahead.
Okay. Extensions like family, society, and country of birth. Rahugana raised his hands. Wait, I don't understand. Tanmatras, organic activities, false ego. What do you mean? Bharata smiled. Be patient, king. I will explain. The tanmatras are subtle elements which are knowledge acquiring senses contact, namely sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. By organic activities, I mean the natural functions of the working senses or organs. For example, the rectum's function is to evacuate, the mouth to speak, the hands to touch, the legs to walk, and the genitals to copulate. False ego is a subtle element which induces the soul to identify with the body and bodily possessions. The mind governs the senses and false ego and is influenced by them as they interact with innumerable material objects.
Anybody has any questions, comments? You can just unmute and...
Rahuguna said, how is that people react to the same sensory experience differently? For example, food. What one man likes, the other hates. Bharata said, this is because different combinations of nature's modes influence different people. Other things also affect how the mind interacts with the sense objects, such as one's age, inclinations arising from past lives, and current cultural differences. Also, Krishna directs the mind's interaction with the world in his form as the Supersoul. Rahuguna said, what exactly is material conditioning? Bharata gave a small smile and nodded. Rahuguna was asking thoughtful questions. He replied, a conditioned soul is one who has forgotten his eternal relationship with Krishna and seeks happiness independently of the Lord. The mind covers such souls and constantly presents endless suggestions for enjoying the external or material energy. Rahuguna said, are all embodied souls conditioned? Not all. Conditioned souls do not realize how the mind works. They are in a dreamlike state, unaware of their real identity. Those who wake up from the mind's influence are liberated. They know that the mind can either keep one in material existence or elevate one to the spiritual atmosphere. They meditate as follows. Krishna, who resides in the heart as a supersoul, controls everyone. He pervades the entire creation. He is complete in himself and does not depend on anything. He knows everything. He is never subject to birth, death, old age, or disease. He controls all the gods, including Brahma. All conditioned souls enter his Narayana form at the time of annihilation. He has all excellences, wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, unlimitedly. Everything and everyone in the material creation rests on him. He is Vasudeva, the lord of the spiritual planets, and he's the master of Mathura and Dwarka. Do liberated souls see Krishna? Some see him in meditation, but others simply hear about him. What is the fate of conditioned souls? Bharata said, as long as you identify with the material body and seek sensual enjoyment, the six enemies will victimize you and you will remain asleep to spiritual realization. They will force you to travel in the material world, birth after birth, from one species to another. Rahuguna swallowed. Who are these six enemies?
Okay, we'll pause here. This meditation, it comes, I remember one bhajan. Hridaya kamaladali na ninna pada padumavane nevante mado yadurajadiraja sudarushanadhara yadurajadiraja idane kripe madinage Madana Pita. So that's the first paragraph of the song. It basically is exactly what these paragraphs are saying here, that Krishna is seated in our heart, in the lotus of our heart, the song says. And yet he pervades the entire creation. He doesn't depend on anything. He's beyond the modes. And Yadu Rajadi Raja, he's actually the king, right? The greatest of all the kings. And he comes in the Yadu dynasty who has all the six opulences: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. I mean, just think about this. That Lord, who's I just described, he's right here in the lotus of my heart, in your heart. He's right there. So he's like, how could I ever consider myself insignificant or poor or sad or depressed or ugly or any of that? It's just impossible because the Lord is seated in my heart. So this meditation, that's the difference between a liberated soul and a conditioned soul, right? A liberated soul is like Brahma Bhuta Prasannanma na shochati na kangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. So as Krishna says in the Gita, is a liberated soul. He's not lamenting, he's not hankering, he's not happy when great things happen, he's not sad when bad things happen, because he just is equally disposed. Like whatever it is, it's Krishna is in charge, Krishna is in control. So imagine if in our lives too, whatever it is, I get a visa or I don't get a visa, if I see that as Krishna's plan, and I have whatever peaceful time, or if I have a chaotic time, whether I get what I want or I don't get what I want, if in every circumstance I can see Krishna's hand, like if the relationships work out the way I want, or maybe it doesn't work out the way I want. Maybe people leave us, maybe people abandon us, maybe we leave people, right? There's all this duality in this world. Sometimes we get rejected, sometimes we reject. The whole cycle goes on and on. And so that's the fate of the conditioned soul. We get affected by the ladder of up and down. When we are in high position, we feel, I am in high position. When we get lowered, when we lose our position, we feel down. When we feel wealthy, I have money, I can do anything. When I don't have money, I feel, I can't do anything. So there's a lot of up and down, the ladder of ups and downs. But amidst that, when this liberated soul sees Krishna in the heart, regardless, even if I get rejected, Krishna is still in me, I'm worthy. That's very important for women, Even my things are not going my way, I'm still worthy. I'm feeling sick, my body is hurting, I'm still worthy. Krishna is in my heart. And then, of course, even when I'm in great times and good position, I still remember Krishna is in my heart, and Krishna is in the heart of the other person also. I can't put others down. So that's the ultimate understanding, that Krishna is in my heart. So I always do the best for my higher self. Yeah, beautiful point here. Okay, thank you. Anyone else wants to read? We have a few more minutes.
Okay, Mataji.
Mhm.
Lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. Rahugana thought of his court Brahmins. They claimed to be liberated, but differed greatly from this person. He was certainly more detached than them. The king asked, "How can I tell if someone is liberated?" Bharat replied, "Unlike liberated souls, conditioned souls identify with the body and are attached to the sense objects. They are disturbed by bodily discomfort and lament, fail to see Krishna's hand in all situations, become obsessed with material possessions, experience dissatisfaction, and feel enmity towards others. All of this binds the conditioned soul to worldly existence. Where he suffers so many miseries." Rahugana said, you are saying the key difference between a conditioned and a liberated soul is the mind's contemplation. The conditioned souls...
We'll pause here. You want to say something, Nitya Kishori? Because she's expert in these topics. She's done
No,
a lot of research.
Mataji, you go ahead. No.
No, it's fascinating. It's so revealing. In the last few weeks, I've been doing astrology readings, and this point keeps coming up for me, that it's the mind, like what it says here. Mind's contemplation. That's it. It's not anything else but the mind. And I read this, I think Madhvacharya. Oh my God, who was it? I think it's Madhvacharya, one of our acharyas. There is this point that comes about, the how do you say, the subtle body is more intelligent than the gross body, and then the mind is more intelligent, and then this is, intelligence is higher. Sorry, yeah, it's like intelligence is higher than the mind. And then he says, lust is higher than the intelligence. Just blew my mind, you know. It's like, what? And I had to go back and read it 3 times. Lust is even higher than intelligence. Like, what? So here it says, lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy. So the mind can really take us on a ride. And then lust can actually become higher than intelligence. And then we get bound by whatever, maybe by desires. Yeah, usually by desires. See, healthy desires are good. Healthy desires should be there, but unhealthy desires, unsatisfied. What does it say here? This page is like amazing. All these things fail to see Krishna's land, this lamentation, becoming obsessed with anything. It could be obsessed with a person, it could be obsessed with plans, it could be obsessed with projects, it can be obsession with things, doesn't matter, obsession about children, and then we experience dissatisfaction, and then we feel enmity toward others. Oof, 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 oof. This is like a whole class here. Just reading this is like, by the way, talking about classes, we need to assign them. Nitikshari. We need to assign the classes. I don't know. This page is just to the point. It's like very apt.
Recently, I heard one lecture of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. He said that, the greatness lies is how we react in the situation. Like, how gracefully, or the meaning is that, the situation is there, but the reaction is up to us.
I'm just thinking my reaction is exactly this paragraph. I get disturbed by bodily discomfort. I lament. I fail to see Krishna's hand in all situations. I know I'm saying this is my reaction. I become obsessed with my plans and things. I get to experience dissatisfaction, and then I feel enmity towards others, and then it binds me to this worldly existence, and I suffer more and more miseries. That's how I react. So what do? That's usually, you're saying the key difference between the conditioned and liberated soul is the mind's contemplation. So we'll pause here. We'll think about this deeply. Any other comments? Any other realizations? It's very powerful. This.
I think, Mataji, we are like expecting some, like you said, we are expecting some love in relationships and etc. So when things don't go as per our expectations, other person or is not responding as per our expectation, or whatever we want, we are not getting. So basically our pleasure is hampered. And then we think, because we are expecting pleasure, and then we think that we get so much obsessed because we want that pleasure anyhow, and then we can't see hand of Krishna in those situations, because like we are sort of blinded. So because we want something, and then we think, oh, things are not going our way, it means Krishna is not there, he's not helping me, etc, etc, and so many things in our mind goes on. So yeah.
I think the main thing is how it's hard to deeply come to this realization that all this thing only binds me more. Just let go, let things be as they are, and see the hand behind it. I'm gonna share something